The sniffer gets a lot of flack from the community due to its limited usefulness and survival. But what if I told you that the sniffer's perceived uselessness is actually the fault of us? I don't mean us, the players, but us as in the humans of the overworld. Sniffer eggs can only be found in the suspicious sands of warm ocean ruins. The villages that would later become the warm ocean ruins were inhabited by two distinct groups that we know of. Fishermen, as evidenced by the angler pottery shard and the proximity to the ancient coast, as well as farmers, as evidenced by the hoes and wheat that we find within the suspicious sands. All artifacts you find within the suspicious sands are typical things you would expect to find from such a people. That is, until you look at the snort pottery shard and the sniffer egg itself. It seems out of place, but when we peel back the layers, we see this wasn't merely an animal that happened to coexist at the same time as the ancient builders, but it was a purposefully domesticated animal. You see, the sniffer's ability to find rare torch flower and pitcher plant seeds isn't an accidental talent. It was a purposefully cultivated trait over the course of generations. The humble pigeon, while now regarded as a flying rat, is a once domesticated bird that outlived the usefulness of its domestication. Once wireless communications became more prevalent, we left our domesticated companion to fend for themselves in the wild. What evidence do we have to support that the sniffer met a similar fate? Although hotly debated, the fossils that can be found in the overworld most closely resemble that of a long since extinct megafauna version of the sniffer. Did the ancient builders of the overworld domesticate the being that the fossil belongs to, and slowly over time bred it to be a smaller and more manageable creature? This could explain why the sniffer has 6 legs, a remnant of when the animal was much larger and needed the extra set of legs to support its massive body. Another fact that supports the domestication claim is that there exists no signs of the sniffer's existence outside of the warm ocean ruins. Meaning, once domesticated, the only populations of these creatures existed within the farms of these coastal communities. Many animals, such as alpacas, guinea pigs, and even cattle, no longer exist as their wild ancestors and only exist as the domesticated versions of themselves. But what purpose would a domesticated sniffer provide to these early inhabitants of the overworld? To find this answer, we must look at the flowers the sniffer digs up, the torch flower and the pitcher plant. While not features of the flowers in the vanilla game, the purpose of these flowers is quite obvious once you look at the name. The torch flower, being a flower that acts as a torch, would light the darkness with its iridescent petals, and the pitcher plant, a flower that grows into a watertight vessel, or a pitcher, that could be used to hold and store water. But you might be asking yourself, why would they need flowers to do these things when we have torches and buckets that fill both of these needs? The answer to that comes down to the raw materials that those items are constructed with. Although we do find iron axes in the loot tables of the warm ocean ruins, we also find wooden hoes, which would indicate that even though these villages had access to ores, perhaps they did not possess these ores in great quantities, as we still see them using wooden tools. So instead of them using their coal for torches, they could use the torch flower for lighting and conserve their coal for use in furnaces. And instead of using valuable iron on buckets, they could use the pitcher plant as a primitive water vessel. And much like the pigeon being made obsolete by wireless communications in our world, once these ancient beings got the ability to acquire ores in more quantities, their need for the sniffer too came to an end. And when ocean levels began to rise, rather than bringing their domesticated companions with them, they, much like us in major cities with the pigeon, left the sniffer with no ability to survive on its own as the oceans rose and wiped out its habitat. Maybe it's not that the sniffer is useless. Maybe it's more of the fact that when one brings an extinct animal back from the dead, the world that that animal was built for, the world that that animal was bred for, just does not exist anymore. Or maybe we still don't have all the pieces to this puzzle. Until next time, stay curious.